Good afternoon, class. I've always personally related my faith journey with the story of David in the Bible. David's always been a character that I've been able to relate to on so many different levels. I think just the biggest thing with David is the way that he repents and the way that he weeps over sin. I've felt that same thing many times in my life where I felt like I've let God down. And David often talks about in the Psalms how he's not only sinned against man, but that he hasn't sinned against man, but he's sinned against God and God alone. And I've always think that's really profound when I reflect on ways that I've fallen short with my relationships and people around me, is that I haven't always sinned against them, but I've sinned against God alone in the grand scheme of things. So I've always appreciated David and his poetry and his language and his heart for God, because he's a warrior and a fighter, but he's also a humble man and a psalmist, and he has many talents that the Lord uses him with. The biggest thing that I draw from the story of David, especially in the Courageous Faith textbook, was in chapter 10, David's story. To quote it, it said, "David didn't ask God to put more in his hands before answering the challenge. Most of us never get going before God, or get going for God, because we want him to equip us first." I always think that's really profound, and I've always liked to think of this story of David and Goliath as not just a small man defeats like a mighty being in the name of God, which that's a great way to look at it. Like, Goliath is our biggest life's challenges, and that we can do anything with God on our side. I think that's a profound way to look at it. But what really makes me think about it, or what the main thing that I take from the story, is what God uses. God uses a simple stone and a faithful man. That's kind of what the main thing that I get from it, that it doesn't matter what you have. David didn't ask for armor, he didn't ask for a sword, he didn't ask for talent in fighting, he didn't ask for any of those things. He just used the daily thing that he's been given, which is shepherding a flock of sheep, and the weapons that he's using in that, which is just a sling and a stone, which, if you really look at those sling and stones, they're actually pretty powerful. But he used that simple thing and just his talents to glorify God. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, it says, "Then David said to the Philistine, 'You come to me with a sword and a spear, with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut your head.'" Pretty intense. But the main thing about it is he's throwing his stone into the world. That his talent is his stone and shepherding his flock, and he's using that in a profound way that God gave him to do it, and to glorify God's kingdom through a simple stone and a simple sling, and that's all it takes. And I think many times we want to ask for God to equip us, like the Courageous Faith textbook says, but we often need to just already use what God's been given us, because it will show his glory a lot more. A simple stone and a sling can take down an entire army. Like, what can God do with your simple talents of maybe you're going into the medical field? What can God do with your simple knowledge of medical information to glorify his kingdom? What can he do with your simple knowledge of business to glorify his kingdom? All these small things can be used in such mighty ways and take down the mightiest of giants that you might not think of can be taken down in those ways. So yeah, thank you.